Oh hey, do any of you even remember part 1 of the mail server series? Well, this is part 2. Welcome strangers of the internet, this is Hopsy. Today we're doing part 2 of the self-hosted mail server series. We actually do the functionality where we test at the end, receiving, sending, and show that this whole setup works. I've made sure to include a bunch of debugging throughout the video so you can see how to break down steps or problems if you have any that aren't similar to my ones. But now it's time to get our domain. I've logged into the account. I want this specific domain name because it's my YouTube name. Hopefully no one's bought it yet. And oh my god, they actually have. What's worse is if you go to ICANN lookup, you can basically see those registered in 2002, so there's never a chance I was going to own this domain. But yeah, that means you have to find something else. So I just found a example domain that I want. I'm not actually going to use besttechyoutuber.com, but if you think it's really cool, you can. I just want to show you the features that you get, which is why it's super important. You get who is privacy, so if you go in here and you look down, you can see all this stuff is redacted. Like, this is not your personal information. And that's because you have who is privacy. They give you the SSL certificate, which if you again watch the previous video, you know that it's super important that we have an SSL certificate. The trial stuff in Quick Connect isn't that important, but the forwarding is kind of standard and super awesome. And then, of course, they just add maximum awesomeness, which I totally agree with. Now we jump again to the Mailcow Dockerized documentation. The short reason is I want to skip the static IP VPS thing. You'll see why in probably about 10 minutes. But this is the next step, essentially. We need to get Docker compose, and then Mailcow onto my Linux server. And then I've already just SSH'd into it, so we'll be doing it through this command line. Just a 2-second injection to show you that the hello world image that I downloaded from Docker worked. So Docker's installed, I still need to go and do docker compose, but thought I'll just update real quick. So yep, the right version of compose was installed. We now move on to the Mailcow part, so I'm just going to drag this across. We can see this essentially in the preparing system section, important sections that we need to cover. None of this is relevant for me specifically, but then you get down here and you can see UFW enabled system, and I'm currently using UFW for my firewall. So we will need to go through this to make sure we're not exposing ourselves. Luckily, I already have the website open, so we just follow this website to fix it. And yes, I'll fix it if there's any problems. We'll talk about it. If there is not, I'll just show you the end and we'll move on. So kind of problem with this is it was published in 2017. That's very outdated. We need something more up-to-date. You can find this generally accepted solution. It was done in 2022. There are multiple websites that say that this is what is being used currently as like the fix. There's 2 solutions that's provided in this write-up. The first one is to just block IP tables, and then you need to manually do firewall rules, which is kind of not the point of UFW since it's supposed to be easy. Which is why if you scroll down to the bottom, they have this workaround. You can go to this guy's GitHub page and see the fix. If I think I already have it copied, so if you just paste it, this is what it comes to. Obviously you want to verify it, you know, they're not installing some rubbish. So if you check, this is the URL, and I come to the actual GitHub page and look here. Obviously you don't want to be installing some random stuff, so always verify what you're looking at. And then we're just going to jump back and install this. And then this should fix this initial problem here with UFW enabled systems. So we've managed to successfully install it. I now am a little bit skeptical, like I always am with these kinds of things, so I want to try it. And to try it, I found this great website. They basically just set up a MongoDB image on Docker, and then they try and connect to MongoDB with another device. And it's really easy because they did it on 192.168, which means it's just locally on your network, so I don't need to do any like IP routing. I mean, like external IP address. This is great. This is really easy to test. So we're going to do that right now and see if it works. So you might be wondering, why am I downloading some random Mongo Docker image? Short answer is, yeah, it's very suspicious. I'm definitely not downloading it. I just went with normal Mongo. Again, while I take the risk, no point. You can see that I've run it here. This is the container ID, and then you can see it's currently still up and running. I then tested it, so WSL obviously this is hosted on my server, this is WSL on a different computer, and yeah, I connected. So the firewall is not working, which is concerning. We obviously need to fix that before I even go and install Mailcow, because again, this is important. So I just want to verify essentially this, because this is the file change that they give to you. And I was like, okay, let's just make sure that it's correctly updated. And then you can see here when you cat it, yeah, it is updated. I don't want to scroll down too far because I'm trying to hide something, but yeah, so this was correctly updated. So this wasn't the problem. When I kept reading, because obviously it says best documentation, and you eventually get to a part down here. So it blocks requests initiated by all public networks, but allows internal networks. And I would put like a face palming meme here, but I want to move on for ease of sake. But essentially, I was obviously trying to connect from 192.168, some internal network, and internal to internal is fine. So if you run it with the external connection, so if you run this, it's just going to wait and then eventually it will time out. Whereas if you did previously from internal, you didn't have the timeout because, of course, like it was an internal connection. What I did is I just like hotspotted my computer and then my server is still on my home network, so it lets me do this. I'm going to try and keep talking if a couple more seconds. If it doesn't time out, then I'll just Control C, but this proves a point. It's obviously not going to connect. Last time it connected almost immediately. Now I'm somewhat confident the firewall system does work, which is good, great. We have to then configure the incoming ports and the outgoing ports. I'm going to show you how to do one, and then I'll just do the rest of them and show you the end result. But it is sudo ufw port 25/tcp allow. Oops. Allow. And then you put in your password. And there you go. And then if you do like sudo ufw status verbose, I think that's, yeah. Zoom out, you can see all the rules currently. So we have HTTP, we have what we just did, no, we don't, that's not SSH either, that's HTTPS, no, that's SSH. 22 is SSH, and then we have SMTP on 25. I've done all the incoming ports, and the good thing is you can see, well, not here actually, that's funny. You can see here that the default is to allow outgoing, so I don't actually need to allow any ports to this because the default allows, which is awesome. Then we have the incoming. I did all the incoming ports. It's a little bit annoying that they have the IPv6 and IPv4, but I mean, like, who even uses IPv6? I feel like people still don't use it, even though we probably should. But yeah, so IPv4, it's all set up. You can scroll down, you'll see there is a port for everything. If there's not, I'm sure I'll be raging at the computer in a few hours. We can now move on to the DNS section, but we can't really move here because we haven't got our VPS yet. I've chosen to go with binary lane for my VPS purely because it's Australian. It has a server where I live or nearby where I live, and it's cheap. So if I make a mistake, I can always just, you know, cop the $7.50. Also, we're going to be using it as a forwarding point, so it'll just forward everything to my server. We'll have a Wireguard setup. There was a guy who made a comment about it, and I thought it was a really good solution, and I read about it online. A lot of people were talking about a similar solution, so I appreciate you very much for that comment. And yeah, so we'll get into that. The VPS is successfully up and running. The first thing I checked was I took the IP address. I'm probably going to block that out, but you know, I took the IP address and I looked at the blacklists. It looks clean on all the blacklists. We had 2 timeouts, but I don't believe that's a problem. So good IP is clean, quote unquote. Someone's going to hate on me for saying that, but we come back. I also updated the system. I made the Hopsy user account. I added all the rules because, again, we need to allow all these ports because we did it on my mail server, but we now need to do it on the VPS as well. And I believe we're going to be installing Postfix because we basically need to use this as a relay or router. I haven't 100% worked out which one it will be. Now we can go and configure the record types we need. The first thing we're talking about is the A record type and the MX record type. We're going to do SPF, DKIM, and Dmarc later, but these are the first thing we need to do now. A address is tying the domain to the IP of the VPS, and the MX record is tying the domain to the correct mail server. So quickly, just to do the A record, you're going to put the domain here. That's the domain. Then we're going to paste the IP address, and I'm going to give it a a note which says IP domain to VPS IP, and we're going to add. I'm going to verify that it got added. We can see that it was indeed added, which is great. Now we're going to do a MX record. This is also pretty straightforward. It's the same domain as we had before, but now we do mail.the domain. So it resolves to this address. We're going to give a priority of 5 because I think that one's a 10, so I want to be better. And then notes mail server MX. Cool. And I believe let's just verify that got added. Priority 5, so basically this means this is going to be above these two. And because it's above those two, it obviously resolves that first, which is what we want. I then did a dig check to verify. The MX works as expected, so the mail, or actually the reverse lookup, the reverse pointer works for the mail. However, the alias and CNAME seems to be messing with the A resolution because A resolves to multiple things. And yes, alias and CNAME is for websites anyway, so I'm just going to delete it completely. We don't need that anymore. And I have it saved, so if I need to, come back, I can come back and fix that. So there we go. It's now deleted, and it should work, hopefully, on dig next time. That is the extent of the DNS setup we'll go to for now. We'll obviously do everything eventually, but DKIM apparently will get generated by Mailcow for you. Well, at least the public and private keys, yeah, I mean, obviously. So that'll set up once we install Mailcow. And obviously I just don't do SPF. Like SPF is pretty simple to do. I have the IP address, I can just set that up, but I don't want to do that without DKIM. It just makes sense to do them together. So I'm going to install Mailcow as standard. It's just following the instructions. There's nothing special here. I'll probably link you guys in once we actually start inputting like domain name and IP address, but until then I'm copy pasting. So nothing special here. You don't get to see me write in mail.domain name purely because I had a problem with the time zone, and I thought you guys listening to me complain about what is UTC time zone while I searched up what it was not a good idea. I just put Australia Brisbane because that's somewhat close to where I am right now. And then now it's asking which branch. Obviously it's 1. I mean, unsupported sounds dumb, and supported to a certain date also doesn't sound great. So we're picking branch 1. Then after this, it's pretty simple. We just need to, it's not on a spam ban list, whatever. Ooh. That probably isn't, anyway, it doesn't matter. We are going to do the Docker pull and whatever, take this. To start Mailcow, pull this. So, okay, now we're gonna wait for that. And then once it's done, we can now log in. Unfortunately, we had a problem. I'm pretty sure I know what it is. Basically, Nextcloud is using port 80 and port 443, and I believe it's trying to like bind to those ports and like says address is already in use, so port 80 is already in use. And it'll probably also then have this problem once I fix 80, 443 will have the same problem. So I'm just going to change the ports of Nextcloud and hope that it works. I ended up just doing the poor man's fix and disabling Apache because you can see Apache was using port 80 and port 443. So just like, okay, disable Apache. We apparently don't need it for Mailcloud, so it's chill. And then again, if you see if anything's running on 80, nothing is now running on 80, so it should hopefully work. I'm not going to make you sit through the whole thing again, so I'll pull and then we'll be back once it works. I'm now creating the WireGuard tunnel. On the left, you see my server, and on the right, you see my VPS. I've just SSH'd into the VPS and SSH'd into the server. I'm following this tutorial. It's pretty relaxed on how to make the reverse tunnel. All you need to do is you generate the keys. So I obviously sudo apt installed WireGuard, then we generate private key, we remove permissions, so only the root, because this is a group and this is other, remove those permissions. Then you generate the public key with your private key, and this is the same for both the server and the VPS. You need a public and private key for both so they can communicate. But then what really changes is when you come down here, you can see well, actually you see this is different to this only slightly. But in general, address, this is going to be the address it has in the VPN network connection. Then the private key is what you generated. Then you have public key. So if you're the VPS, this is the public key for the server. If you're the server, this is the public key for the VPS. You have allowed IPs, and that's just going to be a range. So for example, if you do 192.168.137, then the range will be this .0 /24, and then persistent keep alive 60. The only difference here is the endpoint is the public IP of the VPS, and then the port. Allowed IPs is the same, so basically they just added this endpoint in, and the rest is the same. Then you do this quick start, and I'll come back once I get to this section. I just wanted to show you that we have vim wg0. Also, wg0 is just like the interface that it searches for by default. So as you can see on the left, this is the address. This is the same, but .2. False, false. This is the port that is used by Wireguard. I haven't put the private key. I'm obviously not going to show you that, and I haven't put the public key yet either, but I will. So I managed to follow the tutorial practically towards the end. I did all of this. When you're doing this part here, you just need to make a directory called nftables.d and then add this in and change this. You can do IP link or IP status. I don't remember. It's going to be your Wi-Fi interface. But anyway, so you come in here, you keep following it. I did this, and we come to configuration, and you can see latest handshake. We do not have latest handshake in either of these, obviously, because if one doesn't have it, both won't have it. And I believe that's probably because my firewall is still not configured. I believe WireGuard uses UDP. So let me just verify real quick. It is running both occasionally TCP and UDP. So I'm just going to allow both and not specify. Okay, so role was added. Copy this here, copy this here, allow. Now hopefully if I do WireGuard show, there's still no, what did I just do there? Oh, WireGuard show. There's still no handshake. Let me just ping real quick, just one last attempt at hoping this works. And then if it doesn't, I'll go back into the thinking tank. Oh wait, it actually is pinging. Hold on. Ping 192.168.137.1. Wait, but then that means the handshake should be happening. Okay, latest handshake 24 seconds ago. Let's go. So that was the problem. The problem was, in fact, the UFW blocking the port. Okay, awesome. The next step is to set up the reverse proxy. I'm using nginx and putting it on the VPS. You can follow this tutorial, it's pretty simple. You just install it. You don't need to do this because we already have UFW allowing 80 and 443, and this just resolves to 18. So, yep, this shows you it's running, which is great. This is where you actually need to do it. So your domain is, what we've put as our domain this whole time. So mail.domain. Then you come down here. You can remove the www because we don't care about that, and just put your domain. Then you put your server IP address. So I'll just show you. That'll make life a lot easier for all of us. Vim etc nginx sites available, and then mail. Okay, so it's like this, right? So you have the server name, and then make sure you have the HTTP. I did a thing where I didn't have the HTTP and it didn't work. And then this is it, all you need to do. Then it goes and talks about this, but you don't need to change anything. And finally, you come down here, make sure when you make this symlink, you put your domain properly here. And then this, literally, you'll just get an OK. I don't know if I still have the OK. Probably not, because I just got logged out, yeah. But then you restart and you can go to your domain. And what I mean by you can go to your domain is if you type mail dot, oh, I decided to be silly, like this, we come to Mailcow. The only super big problem we have right now with the Mailcow is if you see when you go to install Mailcow, you scroll down to the bottom, and you look at the credentials, the default credentials are admin and muhu. I believe the dot isn't included. But when I type in admin and muhu, yeah, so login has failed. And I'm not sure why. I went on the fun debugging adventure and I found out basically the reason why. First thing I did was reset the password. So as you can see, we have admin and now a completely different password. I'm just going to copy this real quick so I remember. And then really it was just super dumb. This was user login. If you go to where Mailcow is, you can see admin needs this /admin thing, and I didn't do that. So if you write /admin and you write admin and put in password, you will log into the admin portal. Say that's just a rookie mistake. We can see here we don't have anything secure. So what I would do is I now need to do SSL. That means we redirect ourselves back to installing Mailcow, and you see this info section. It says redirect all HTTP requests to HTTPS, but it says if you're not behind a reverse proxy, but we are behind a reverse proxy. Yet when you click on it, then it shows you this, but we don't care about that. This part here, if you are using a reverse proxy in front of Mailcow, see our reverse proxy guide. That takes you to the reverse proxy guide. And it's like, you don't need to change, so you don't need to change what's on Mailcow. However, you do need to change this. This is in, if I pull it up, you can see you go to the Dockerized folder and mailcow.conf. I change this password, don't even bother. And then compose up, and that changes that as you need to. Then you scroll down and you read don't use the ports. We're obviously using 80 and 443. I'm not using 8080. Like I said, I'm using 80 and 443. Then you come down, like I said, Docker Compose, and you can read this stuff. We don't have a alternate name. I'm just using mail.domain name. Then this is to create self-signed SSL certs, which we don't want to do. That's why they're called snake oil certs. We're obviously not just doing it locally. I want it from everywhere to be secure, so we need a proper SSL. We aren't using TLS SNI, and I won't be using ACME either. I'll just get my own SSL cert and use it. That then means we go into NGINX, and NGINX, this is this. And why this is relevant is because we need to change our proxy again. I'm not going to pull up what it was previously, but because I've already changed it. But in short, if I go this, you can see I've now changed the proxy. However, problem, if we do this and then I do the test, it says it failed. And the reason it failed is because it can't, this looks really bad probably for you guys, there we go. It can't open this folder here. And that's because I haven't generated a cert yet. And I, for some reason, thought we're on opt Mailcow, which obviously we're not, but I'll need to change this directory as well. So we need to generate a SSL cert. And to do that, if we go to here, you can find, basically we're going to use let's encrypt certs. I'm going to follow this, get this, and then it will be here. And once I get this, we're going to change the path directory and then see if the proxy will work, because we need to verify the proxy still works, and test SSL, see if that works too. Hopefully this is my final time explaining this and it works. The first thing we need to do is we obviously want to use our own certificate. That means I need to disable, no, not this. There's one thing I need to disable that turns off, let's encrypt. Turns off let's encrypt, and then you come down and you can use your own certificate. That means, though, we need to use our own certificate. So I know I showed before, I don't know if that make it to the final edit. We're going to do this, but we're going to use cert only, because this is going to change the configuration file. I don't think they show it. And last time I did this, it didn't work. So I'm going to do cert only and then set it up myself. And by setting it up myself, I mean I'm going to use their proxy file. But obviously I'm not going to properly use like copy paste, because you can see stuff like SHA-1, that's outdated. I think even KRSA is outdated. I think both of these you can't use anymore. I think anal and MD5 is still used, but that's not the point. Some of this stuff also isn't right, like these paths are just wrong. I intend on using, for the SSL part, you can go here and you'll find this setup, which is what I'll just be copying this essentially. This is the cert configuration. If we read here sudo, we all know what sudo is. Certbot is the guys who are going to give a certificate. Cert only means we're just going to get the cert and it's not going to change any configurations. NGINX just means this is how they're going to serve the challenge. You can do standalone or DNS, I think, are the other options, but we have an NGINX server that's running and is configured, so might as well just use it. And then domain is my domain. Now I'm going to press enter. It's requesting a certificate. We'll have to wait a few seconds. It's going to ask us a few questions. Actually, it didn't even ask us any questions. Certificate is saved here, and the key is saved here. So that's great. Now we need to configure our NGINX on this side, and then also on the Mailcow side. I'm just going to show you guys what's happening and why we have such a big problem. In short, the private key that I get is just way too short, which means it's unusable, which if you saw one of my previous parts, which I don't think I'll add, basically NGINX and another container, Docker container, were completely failing because the key obviously wasn't correct, and then we're getting 502 bad gateway. Basically, the good thing is Porkbon, the absolute goats, give you a free SSL. So I've downloaded that and I'm going to use their SSL certificate instead. However, now I need to get the certificates onto both this and the other server, which is going to take some time. I'm going to do that. Once I get the certs onto the server, we'll be back and I can show you how to configure that properly then. 2-second interjection. I checked the private key and I'm going to say that I'm pretty certain it's correct this time. So that's awesome. So we need to redo the Nginx site. Come in here, obviously all we have is port 80. We need to set up port 443, so to be something like server when I come back in a second and type. We can see here I've set up, we don't need either of these. In post, I thought it would just be easier to show you guys what I did. And essentially, if you just remember what was before, we've changed, you have the SSL, part up here, and then you have the HTTP part at the bottom. I did like a 10-minute explanation of this, but I'll keep it short this time. Basically checking if the host is this, if it is redirect to HTTPS, obviously. And then this is just in case it doesn't redirect, but it'll always practically redirect. And the redirection, of course, will take you to here. This is your SSL setup, the same server name. These are the certificates. It's complaining about key because it has the word key and that, that's a flag, gets read. Then I've basically just taken this from the website. If I can move this, you can see, not on that side, but on this side, they have it here. That's just copy and paste. Then I have better SSL because they use SHA-1 and KRSA, and that stuff is just old, outdated. You can't use that anymore. These are the correct ciphers to use. They didn't even have TLS v1.3. I have both TLS v1.3 and 1.2, so that's important. Make sure you're protecting your SSL properly. Then you have the location. This is, again, our tunnel, our proxy. And yes, this is just saying our server, connect to it. And then the buffers at the bottom as required in location down here, because otherwise it'll fail, but whatever. Then you right quit. That's the only changes I made. I'm just gonna reload Nginx, whatever you want to call it. I searched what error 301 was. Let's not talk about that. Mail dot this. And then as you can see, we no longer have the unsecure page, HTTPS, which is exactly what we're trying to get. One more important thing to add, this time I successfully changed the keys out. So I put my SSL certs into the Mailcow certs. The main thing is when you get the domain cert and the private key cert, make sure this one is the one that has the combined certificates. So I read on quite a few portals, if I try and look now, it's not going to happen, but here. This guy, for example, he always says use full chain and private key, not cert.pem. And that's relevant because if I scroll up a little bit, you can see you have public key.pem and then domain cert and private key.pem. So for the public one, you should be using the domain cert. And then private key is private key, obviously. And I just ran compose, which resets this all, and it looks like it's fine, so no problems there, which is good. Now we finally made it to the end stretch. We open up the UI, I have a long password. Please don't try and hack me though. That would be not appreciated. We can go into system configuration and I'll show you here is how you change your password. Like I said, already done it. It's quite long. Longness doesn't actually mean it's secure though, but that's another debate, I guess. Here we can go into email configuration. We need that so we can add the domain. The domain, I tried to do Sylvester. That was a complete fail on my part. The domain is obviously this, my cool domain. And then everything else is going to be the same. DKIM, aliases, mailboxes, per mailbox. Yeah, it looks right. And now we're going to restart. This might take a little bit to restart, so while it's restarting, we are going to have some elevator music. Okay, cool. Restarted. Hopefully you like the elevator music at the same time. Now I press DNS. I have to wait for DNS, so more elevator music. Okay, awesome. Now we have this stuff. And the cool thing about this stuff is we need to configure all of it. So Hopsy, we knew that was going to happen. Interesting. This is a pointer. I don't need to do anything with that. And the first thing we need to do is just CNAME. So let me pull up pork bun. Pork bun, here we are. DNS. Why did I press DNS? That's not DNS. My bad, sorry guys. DNS. A CNAME record. So basically all this is we're going to take auto discover, and this is useful, I believe, if you're doing like Google or Outlook, then you need this setup. But because we don't, you don't necessarily need it, but we're going to do it anyway. So it'll be auto discover dot that, which is, yep, right. Then we're also going, and I'll CNAME, yep, then I'm going to do auto config, and it's the same thing. So if I just take that, mail dot, I think yeah, there we go. Cool, so it's auto config as well. We're going to add that. Now let's just verify that the CNAMEs are correct. Auto discover, auto config, that looks correct to me. Now we can go down to DKIM. So if I just copy that, because it's going to append my domain name on the end anyway, it will be a txt file. I need to check for the other two, so I won't be able to do the other two as quickly. But there we go. Now I'm just going to move this aside again, copy this whole thing, come back, put that in, move it to the top so it's not. I believe that's okay for DKIM. That looks right. Now I believe you need to do different stuff for this. So this will load. I consulted the Wise YouTube, and this seems to be what I should put in. So now we get this, which is the Dmarc record. If I pull pork bun back, we go back up, new txt record, underscore Dmarc. Let me just verify real quick by clicking here, underscore Dmarc, awesome. Add that record. Now if we scroll down, we can see underscore Dmarc. That looks relatively correct to me. And the last one we have to do is the SPF record. So if we come here, SPF, I'm probably gonna have to also search up what to do here because I'm not entirely sure. If mechanism results in a hit, its qualified value is used, qualified value, for example. Yes, I don't know what that actually means. I'm going to be back once I find out. After consulting the internet, we have the answer. It will be this here. And that is because it allows the A and MX record and it will block everything else, which is what we want, because if we come to pork bun, which I literally have to open anyway, we can see that the A record is this and blocking everything else is exactly what we want. And then mail the Hopsy, that's also the MX record. So perfect. Now we can go add, which is txt host. What do we need the host to be? That's actually a good question. If we come back, do I just leave it then as .hopsypopsy.com? I believe so, right? Because that's just the root, so I don't need to change anything there, because it will say it will do this. And add, let's just verify. Yeah, okay, so that added correctly, which means we've set up the DNS records, and we can move on to the email address. So now from the main UI, you can go into configuration, and domain is what we've already set up, so we don't need to talk about that, but that'll show the DNS stuff we're doing before. Now you can come into mailboxes, and you see I've already created a mailbox. I'm just going to show you how to create another one because it's really easy. So Bob, full name Jeff, password generate, and then that's fine. I mean, I'm just going to delete it in a second anyway. Now you can see it's created here. I'm going to remove. One thing I do want to mention is I had a problem with Sogo. And the reason for this is if you want to use Sogo, you either need to log in as the user, or you need to grant yourself, if I can pull open the right file this time, I think it's this one. Yeah, this will work. If you come into here and you go Mailcow conf, you'll see here allow admin email login, and that basically just lets you use the admin account to log in as any email. And I guess really if you're using this for private purposes, then you should just enable this and always log in as admin and then pick which email you want to log in as. So I think that's the best solution anyway. So now I can move that away. Then you press this. I'm just going to open a different tab so I can go back easily if I want. I tried sending a email test here. It didn't work. I tried receiving and it also didn't work. The reason for both of these is because if you come here and you read, so I've opened the logs of Postfix. As you can see here, this is how you check the logs. You guys are probably going to struggle to see this. I do apologize. But in short, we're not connecting at all. You can see connect timed out. And the reason, at least I believe currently, is the port is completely blocked. So we need to do a workaround on the port. So that means the time to install Postfix has indeed come. I've already updated packages, so we don't need to do that. Sudo apt install Postfix. Yes. Okay, cool. Now we have to do configuration. So I believe it's an internet site is most likely system mail name. That's a great question. Okay, I believe it's just going to be this then. Because I'm reading off a side screen here on what they recommend, and it basically says here, system mail name. This is the base domain used to construct a valid email address when your account, when only the account portion of email address is given. For instance, let's say host name, blah, blah, likely want. So yeah, example.com, that makes sense. Sorry about my dogs, by the way. Oop, come on. We can always change it later, I guess, so no stress with that one. Do we get another question, or is that it? What I want to do first is basically just set up receiving, and then we're going to forward everything through that VPN tunnel that we did with Wireguard. So now we're going to run through the configurations of Postfix on the VPS, and if we just come here, you can see there's a bunch of files. I've added in transport and virtual. We need this to reconfigure our receiving, but we're going to talk about sending first. I said I'll do receiving, but sending first. Now we go into main.cf, and I'll show you a bunch of stuff I've added. So looking here, from the top, nothing was added at this point. The first adds I made was virtual and transport. This was for receiving, and you use virtual and transport to basically say, well, this is our local VPS, and everything is resolved to hopsypopsy.com here. But we don't want it to resolve here. We actually want to push it to our Mailcow server. So that's why we have virtual and transport, because transport will say, don't actually put it on local where it's supposed to be, push it where I'm telling it to go. And yes, that's the point of having transport. Then you need to obviously change your SSL certifications. So we've done the SSL part before. You know where we got the SSL certificate from. You literally just change the directory path to the certificate. So this is your private key, and then that's the CA key that has both keys inside. Then I didn't bother changing this because it works without changing it. Follow further down. This is all the same. This is all the same. The one thing you do need to add is, again, no relay host, obviously, because we're going to have the relay host on the Mailcow. You'll see that in a second. You have to add the 192, the 168, the 137.0. So I just said anything on this. So this is 1 to 255, I believe. Anything in that range. We only really needed 192.168.137.1, but I just did the whole thing instead. So anyway, that's the main.conf file. Now we're going to go into the transport file. It's just this, resolve this to this address, which is of course our Mailcow address. Again, you can just copy and paste that, except for change it with your Wireguard IP. Maybe use the same one, but your Wireguard IP. And then this is just Sylvester to Sylvester, so nothing special there. I don't remember how you're supposed to... Oh, like this. You do this, and then you'll do the same for transport, and that will give you the transport DB and the virtual DB, and then after that you just restart it, and it should be good to go. You can also read logs, but I don't want to show you logs because it's going to show you a bunch of IP addresses, which I don't want to show. In terms of configuration of Postfix, that's literally it. You can move on. When I say move on, I'm obviously lying a little bit here. We need to talk about the Mailcow server configuration file as well, because that needs to be edited. If we come here, you can take a look. The only change we made was changing this relay host to 192.168.137.2 and port 587, because for me, port 25 was blocked. So you need to do it with this instead. Now, if we scroll down, just so you can see what my config is, I don't believe I changed anything else. I'm very sure I didn't really change anything else here. I literally just set up relay host and it worked. In terms of other configs, again don't think I changed anything else in Postfix other than the relay host saying it's my VPS. So yeah, we should get into testing to show you that it works now. We've successfully made it to the testing stage. Let's go. You can see I already have 16 messages. That's from previous testing, but yeah, so we're here. I want to write a new email. So we're going to write a new email. I am going to send it to a specific email address. I don't really want you guys to see what the email address is though. Oh, well, I'll hide it in post. Hello? This is another test. Haha. Now we're going to send that. And once it's been sent, we should see it in my actual inbox. So I'm going to open my inbox on the side. Hopefully it opens. Yeah, okay, awesome. The inbox is open on the side. We are waiting. Now we have received it. I'm going to, again, have to hide the email address. I don't know how to do that. So I'm just going to pull it across. You can see here, this is another test, blah, blah. You can see when it was sent. If we go into sent, you can see this is sent at this time, which means it worked. We know that the email is sent and received. I also tested sending to @Outlook and @Gmail, so I'll just flash that on the screen so you can see that it did work. My friends did receive those email addresses, which means generally everything worked. You can send, you can receive. Also, yeah, like I said, I did receive emails back, as you saw previously by my inbox. And yeah, that concludes generally the testing because we have the functionality. One last check I completely forgot about. You can search up email health, which we're about to do. I know that it passes practically everything. We have 4 warnings, but you see 122 passed. No blacklists, web server is good. Mail server has 2 warnings, and DNS has 2 warnings. Dmarc, MX, DNS. Generally, it's passing pretty much everything. There's no red errors, which is what you'd really be concerned about. So I would say this also passes this test. Well, congratulations on making it to the end of the tutorial. This took me a long time, so I hope everyone who watched it did enjoy and did learn something, and essentially made this easier for someone else to set up their mail server, because I know how hard it was for me. Saying that, if you have any other video ideas, please let me know in the comments. I don't think part 3 will come out anytime soon, purely because this took me so long, and if I was to do this again, it'll be like an exponential increase on part 2, and so I'm just going to have to be doing that slowly over a long period of time, creating part 3. But regardless, thank you all for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.